Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Ashtatatara Shata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Ashtatatara Shata Sri Srimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Brahmacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Founder Acharya of Iskcon Srila Prabhupada Ki Iskcon Guru Vrinda Ki Prem Shri Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Shri Radhanila Madhava Dham Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Yamuna Devi Ki Gangamai Ki Shrimati Tulsi Maharani Ki Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki The Most Merciful Lordship Shri Shri Chaitanya Chandra Nitai Gaur Chandra Ki Shri Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Shri Shri Radha Giridhari Ki and the Most Beautiful Lordship Shri Shri Radhanila Madhava Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga.
Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Munatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Ran Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girvaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Jana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya We're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto, 84th chapter, doing texts 2 through 9. Purport will be at 9. I guess the easiest thing to do is just go ahead and just read the text, translations from 2, and then we'll stop at 9 and do the recitation of the Sanskrit. Starting at text 2, the title of the chapter is The Sage's Teachings at Kurukshetra. Text number 2, Sukadev Goswami said, Pritha, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, and the wives, that's text 1. One more page here. Here we go. Text number 2, right? There it is. As the women thus talked among themselves, and the men among themselves, a number of great sages arrived there, all of them eager to see Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. They included Dvaipayana, Narada, Chavana, Devala, Asita, Bhishmarita, Satananda, Bharadvaja, Gautama, Lord Parashama, and his disciples Vaishistha, Galava, Bhrigu, Palisja, and Kashyapa, Atri, Markandeya, and Brihaspati, Diviti, Drita, Ikata, and 4 Kumaras, and Angira, Agastya, Yagnavalka, and Vamanadev. Text 6. As soon as they saw the sages approaching, the kings and other gentlemen who had been seated immediately stood up, including the Pandava brothers, and Krishna and Balaram. They all then bowed down to the sages who are honored throughout the universe. Text 7. Lord Krishna, Lord Balaram, and other kings and leaders properly worship the sages by offering them words of greeting, sitting places, water for washing their feet, drinking water, flower garlands, incense, and sandalwood paste. Text 8. After the sages were comfortably seated, the Supreme Lord, whose transcendental body protects religious principles, addressed them in the midst of that great assembly. Everyone listened silently with rapt attention. Text 9, today's verse. Read the single lines and repeat after. Shri Bhagavan Huvacha Ayo Vayam Janma Brito Labdam Kartsnena Tatpalam Devanam Api Dusprapam Yad Yogeshvara Darshanam Shri Bhagavan Huvacha Aho Yvayam Janma Bhrito Labdam Kartsnena Tatpalam Devanam Api Dusprapam Yad Yogeshvara Darshanam. I'll do the verse here just. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aho Vayam Janma Brito Labdam Kartsnena Tatpalam Devanam Api Dushpripam Yad Yogeshvara Darshanam. Please repeat. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ayo Vayam Janma Brito Labdam Kartsnena Tatpalam Devanam Api Dusprapam Yad Yogasvara Darshanam Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ayo Vayam Janma Brito Labdam Kartsnena Tatpalam Devanam Api Dusprapam Yad Yogasvara Darshanam. Please. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ayo Vayam Jamabrito Yad Devanam Api Dusprapam Yad Yogasvara Darshanam. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Yavayam Jamabrito Abdam Krishnena Tatpalam Spanam Mataji He Bhagavan Uvacha Labdabdar Katshena Tatpalam Devanam Api Dushprapam Usvara Darshanam. Translation here from English, Sanskrit to English. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Supreme Lord said, Aho, Vayam, we, Janma Britaha, having taken birth successfully, Labdam, obtain, Kartsnena, altogether, Tat, of it, one's birth. Balam, the fruit. Devanam, for demigods. Api, even. Dush prapam, rarely obtained. Yat, which. Yoga, Yoga Ishvarya, the masters of yoga. Darshanam, the sight. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada. Translation: the Supreme Lord said, "Now our lives are indeed successful, for we obtain life's ultimate goal, the audience of great yoga masters, which even demigods only rarely obtain." Please repeat. The Supreme Lord said, "Now our lives are indeed successful, for we obtain life's ultimate goal, the audience of great yoga masters, which even demigods only rarely obtain." And we have a short purport. Purport: despite the great privileges of the demigods enjoy as administrators of the universe, they rarely see such sages as Narada and Vyasadeva. How much rarer, then, it must be for the earthly kings and mere cowherds to see them. Here, Lord Krishna identified himself with all the kings and others who had assembled at Samanta Panchaka, speaks on their behalf. Tamaran. Patuviyascha kripa sende evacha patanam parayo vaishnava. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This verse kind of reinforces what I currently went through when I was in Vrindavan. I was, just prior to Kartik, I was trying to make arrangements to help with my father's ashes and getting them delivered to the Ganges, and nothing seemed to succeed. And then out of the blue, supreme blue, I'm pretty sure, where else would it come from? Arrangements were made, and I ended up with some Lakshmi that I could afford a ticket. So I managed to get over there just in time for Kartik, and it was kind of an impromptu visit. But while I was there, taking care of my own personal needs, I also had the pleasure of good association with different sages, or yoga masters, one could say. And it was very nice association, and association is very important for our practice. And the understanding of that association and respectfully appreciating it is very important. The last time I gave a class was Thanksgiving 2015 here. And so I'm not a real erudite scholar, you might say. I shoot from the hip a lot. I kind of just improvise where I can. But there are specific protocol that goes with these classes. So please bear with me and excuse my offenses. I'll try to deliver the, what's really helpful is you just read Prabhupada's books and just speak directly from them, and you're pretty much bulletproof. The last time I spoke here was on Thanksgiving, and my mood was not the best. I was a little bit cynical. The Thanksgiving holiday for me symbolizes some things that are a little incorrect historically, but that's not so important as we have an accurate assessment of history with the Vedas that goes back to time immemorial. So that's our saving grace. As in the Caitanya Caritamrta, it says, by remembering the lotus feet of the Panchatattva, a dumb man can become a poet, a lame man can cross the mountains, and a blind man may see the stars in the sky. So I have at least a fighting chance I might be able to get a small inkling of poetry, as I'm not very qualified to be up here. But I'm very impressed with what exposure that is presented in these books and then in India itself, known as Bharata Varsa. Examples, when I first went to Mayapur, there were so many advanced devotees there, and it was a quiet time for Mayapur. Kartik is more busy in northern, or in Vrindavan, but the people there are very organized and respectful, and Mayapur is getting very inundated with tourism there, but it's well organized. I like what's going on there. The Temple of Vedic Planetarium, that's being established. It's a diamond in the crown of Prabhupada's movement. So, in 2022, they're expecting to have that completed and opened. So, any contributions you can give that way, it's always nice. The time in Mayapur was only for a few weeks, and basically I went to Mangalore to keep up with that, and managed to get in there, get good darshan. And Association of Devotees there was, again, I say, was very nice. After completing that, I ended up going to Vrindavan, and that's where it was really a bit more intense. The mood in Mayapur and the mood in Vrindavan, there's like different rasas. As the term rasas, as like in mellows or flavors, is translated roughly into English. And the Sanskrit, as we know, has certain terms that are not really translatable to an English perception. So the language barrier is sometimes there for us, especially in the Western culture, of understanding some of the things that go on within this, the Vedic wisdom. But as we get more association and we absorb some of it and can kind of ascertain, its complete, meaning to our potential. So I went to Vrindavan and went up there. I've got association of Vaisheshika Prabhu. He was in Iskcon at Govardhan Hill. It's the first time I've been there too. I didn't really have a nice facility just down I think it's about maybe a quarter mile south of Radhakund. But I was there on Govardhan Puja, when the day of Govardhan's appearance is celebrated, or the actual festival that Krishna performed on that day. And Vaisheshika Prabhu was talking a lot about some of the details of Govardhan Hill itself. And being there on the hill and engaging in these pastimes, it really just reinforced the mood that goes with Govardhan Hill itself and the Vrindavan and that whole area. It's something you have to take at a level that you can appreciate too. For me, it's quite a while. I was there 2 days, and one of the Brijabashis there that helped make arrangements said, "Oh, why don't you just stay for all Kartik right here?" And I don't know if I could handle it. It's amazing intensity and very purifying. But we all have to kind of work at our level of appreciation, and the more we can associate and more purification we get, that is fine. But if we're not ready for it, we can, get discouraged or get, confused and misunderstand things. So it's kind of nice that, as water finds its own level, we should do the same thing in our devotional practice. Enthusiasm is very good. Intelligence and patience needs to go with that enthusiasm. So I'm learning to apply that. I think this was, it was my 5th visit to India, and so I was pretty comfortable going solo. The first time I go to India, it's good to have a tour guide or a mentor or someone to associate with that can help, especially somebody that speaks Hindi or the language. That makes a world difference too, because there is as I say, it can be overwhelming. There's also, details of society there that are quite different. It's a third world society compared to our Western society. So things are a little bit more obvious. It's not so candy-coated as things here in America. If there's problems or suffering, we'll put a sugar coating on it, or we'll address it as, we're fixing it. The check is in the mail. That's kind of the Western mentality. We can fix anything. But this is not true. This material world is designed for dysfunctional aspects to remind us that we're not in our rightful position. is getting to understanding that what is our position is the greatest journey of each individual as a human being. Because as humans, we have that consciousness and understanding that we are existing. We have cognizance. In the Western culture, it's basically everything is instructed as what can we do with the existing body we're in, and not even thinking of that there's any existence beyond our current one. And that's blind ignorance in many ways. And so as the years have gone by, I've seen where Prabhupada's lessons and the devotees and the Hare Krishna movement has dwindled somewhat in the West, but those that have kept with the program, I also see great advancement. It's the age of Kali is a difficult one, so we have our work cut out. But stick with the program, stick with the rounds, 16-4, 16 rounds, 4 principles. And that is the medicine that you should always keep. And if you do that, more will be revealed to you as you practice. And then the levels go on your own desires too. That's why you want to be careful about, like I was mentioning, that you want to work at a level that, in a comfort zone, as in the verse, as a sage we're comfortably seated, the Supreme Lord, whose transitional body protects religious principles, address them in the midst of that great assembly. Everyone listens silently with rapt attention. So the first line is comfortably. The sages were seated comfortably. So there has to be a certain comfort zone for the mind to be able to let go and receive information on a level that the intelligence can absorb. That levels that we do that is the more we can get the intelligence plugged in and more connect to our soul, the stronger our affinity be for the love of God. And because of our rebellious natures and our guaranteed freedom by the Constitution, we have certain expectations, and we can be overwhelmed by some of the things that are offered here. So to desire understanding and to pursue that is really a worthy thing to do with your lives. So myself, I can speak out of a great ignorance because I was distracted by many different things. I introduced to this movement early in the 70s and got associated with devotees, even got a glimpse of Prabhupada's darshan. Was very fortunate for these things to happen, but I took so much for granted, and what's in it for me? Well, can I enjoy myself? And Krishna gave me all the rope I wanted. I enjoyed myself to the point that I was actually hurting myself. I could have killed myself in some of the things I was doing. But Prabhupada was still there in the background. That moment's association, just a few seconds, Prabhupada planted a seed. And from that seed, it was taking root. I was not aware of it at all. And 20 years later, I was in a position where I had everything materially one could want. And I was still not satisfied. Then I had some dreams about devotees and then Prabhupada. And then the situation I was at was changing. People weren't happy. There was dissatisfaction on their part. I was a little confused, and I started praying, God, what's going on here? I need to make some arrangements. I want to do what's best for everybody. And then boom, my job got relocated. I got pushed out of the house I was in, and all of a sudden everything was taken away. And I go, well, that's not what I had in mind. I wanted to work it out here. But it was a good arrangement because I ended up back with the devotees. I went back to Berkeley, California, spent some time there in the early 90s, and met, advanced devotees at that time. People have been in movement for a long time and stuck with it. And I began absorbing some of the benefits of Krishna consciousness and realized I made a grave error. But it's better to go through that process and come back than to try something that's overwhelming. You don't want to be taking sannyasi or something that's so demanding of you that you're not able to cope with it. You're liable to lose your affinity and enjoyment of Krishna consciousness, because it is, it's joyfully performed as a sacrifice. So it's this point where I have to be very careful myself. As I mentioned, I'm quite the fool, and I've fooled myself many times But there's also a place for a little bit of humor, a little bit of levity. And fortunately, with my Diksha Guru, Hanumat Prasad Swami, he knows about levity, and he knows about some of the aspects of entertainment in this aspect. And as he's mentioned, this movement actually has aspects of like the Gandharva Dharma, where we do perform and we share things through performance in certain aspects. You can read from the books, and that's good. Especially for the more erudite and Brahminical people, they can absorb this knowledge quite much more easily than some that aren't so educated. So that's where the entertainment aspect and the doing the different plays of the pastime, then people in general kind of appreciate that. That's where, kind of like where Hollywood is at and Bollywood, they take this entertainment and then now they've expounded on it to a very material level and a gross level and know how to exploit it very nicely. In aspects, we need to kind of perform the same way in our own terms. So, any questions or comments thus far? Yes, Prabhu.
I didn't know that you had saw Srila Prabhupada. Can you say something about the situation where you saw Prabhupada? Did you see Prabhupada?
Oh, at that time? Oh, certainly, yes, yeah. That was in 1974, when I saw Srila Prabhupada in living color. it was a brilliant time. That was in 1974 at the Rath Yatra in San Francisco, and that was in the heyday. That time, there's thousands of people at Rath Yatra in San Francisco, and the streets were inundated. When I arrived there, it was the 3 chariots were lined up at the starting point, and there's people everywhere and chatting and carry on, and it was quite joyous. There's people. It's summertime. It was just the big party in San Francisco. Yeah, everybody was there. I mean, I was in the middle of it and was kind of overwhelmed and very fortunate to be there, but I didn't know how fortunate. But when Prabhupada arrived, he came up in a white Lincoln Continental, if I remember right, suicide door where they open out. So everybody's chit-chatting, chatting away and having very entertained with the event, and it just got totally silent when the limo rode up. And I go, why is it getting so quiet? What's going on here? And then when the limousine drove up, and sannyasi came and opened the door. And when they opened the door, Prabhupada just kind of floated right out, and I just went, that's the guy. I remember from the books, I was reading some of the books and seeing photographs, and he wasn't really greatly tall or anything, but the aura about him, just when he stepped out of the car, you just kind of felt something's going on here. This guy was, just transcending the whole situation and bringing the event to what it really was about, and that was, the Rath Yatra, the event of association with the devotees and darshan of the deities. As this chapter is covering, there at Kurukshetra, this event is depicted in the Rath Yatra. So I observed Prabhupada, I was watching him, and he's going up to the middle chariot where Subhadra is at, and he just, in the Vyasihana, I didn't even see him take a step. I just kind of blinked my eyes and he was there, and I kind of went, what's going on here? And then I'm standing there watching, and these devotees are bowing, watching all these people bowing towards Prabhupada, and I'm kind of standing there like, wow. And I'm standing there, and the Prabhupada's looking my direction. I go, I think I better bow. So I hit the pavement when I bowed. And at that point, I've got just a total rush from my bottom of my spine up to the top of my head, and I'm just like feeling something's going on I've never felt before, and I was very overwhelmed. And then as I got up, the people were receding, getting back up. It was kind of like an ocean of people bowing towards Prabhupada, like when the tide goes in the ocean, and then receding, and then revealing Prabhupada up there, and then the day started, and kirtan, everybody was in ecstasy. So it was overwhelming for me at that time, and I wasn't ready. I was just out of high school, and I was a little bit indulgent in intoxication, which doesn't help. It distracts you. And at that time, LSD and drugs were the way. That's spiritual realization. It's mental concoction. It's not spiritual. There's facets of spirituality in our life everywhere we go, though. Material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. And so you can take once you start Krishna consciousness, you can take parallels, and a certain person describes something. Well, Krishna is there, maybe just a little bit. Another person, pure devotees, quoting Sastra, go, it's 100%. That can be very overwhelming if you're not ready for it. So you're dealing with, the negative aspect of understanding Krishna, to understand the negative so you can get to the positive, where you're so involved in the positive aspect that you're empowered by the Guru and Bhagavan, that that people can appreciate on that level will expound. It doesn't ever plateau. Krishna consciousness will always expand. It always gets better. So it's a lot to take on. And I apologize. I hope I didn't digress too much. But the Prabhupada at that time, that was a very overwhelming experience. But it was all very worthwhile. It brought me here. So it's nice to be here and have your association too. It's the time in Vrindavan, and there's association with the devotees at the temple, and then you have the Brijabasis, the local people who are just living in the streets, and some, of course, very wealthy, some are very poor, beggars, all extremes there. But Vrindavan's a smaller, compact city where Mayapur's only expanded as far as the temple goes. You have the full facility, the farmland, and all that. So that's all one facility. We're in Vrindavan, Krishna Balaram temple, and that's Lord Krishna's, home turf, you could say. But the Brijabasis and other people that are on their own, at their own terms of Krishna consciousness, by being born there, it's a little more unique. So it's not as as gently presented as Mayapur is, as Vrindavan Sam is. It can be very harsh. There's some. I was coming out of the temple, and there's a beggar underneath a tree just outside Prabhupada's Samadhi. I could barely see him, and I see his crutches sticking out, and cars are driving by, running over his crutches. He's just sitting there, and his hands going out occasionally looking for something, and I just nobody is really aware he's there. And so next to me, there's a stand. This guy's making hot milk, and that's pretty good milk too. It's like, I think it was 40 rupees for a tall glass of hot milk from the Dham, and I ordered one, and people are fighting to get to the milk, and all the tourists are there, and everybody's, it's all about me. And I'm just going, well, I'm going to get this for this guy. And I finally get him. Being in a Western body, there's certain expectation you get from the locals that have certain attitudes sometimes, or at least the people that are, lower consciousness of individuals. But so I get this, and I take this over to this guy, and I drop it, or place it in his hand, and he just comes up, and he comes up to me, and just starts bowing at my feet. I'm just going, I'm backing off. But the thing that all this is going on, all this activity is away from, the relationship that we have with one another. We get kind of overwhelmed by the crowds and the activity. It's keeping that personal level at all times will really enhance Krishna consciousness on your personal level with that practice. And then things around you can kind of address where you can fit in, where you can help somebody, like with book distribution and things like this. It's an art to do that. But if you have that technique, you get someone's interest, you can present the literature and the scripture in a manner that's attractive, and they will take it to it and accept it at a better level than just, here it is, bye. And my technique is a little bit more abrupt in that way. But I guess my essential message is keep your character, keep your personality as you are, but understand where that is with your relationship to Krishna. It's kind of tricky because we've been through so many births, and we've been conditioned so many ways between our mind and our own desires that it's the proclivities we have come naturally certain levels. If we're not indulging in sense gratification, what can I enjoy? What can I enjoy? It's more like, well, what do I like doing? What do I like doing for others? That will give you clues to more of what your position is on a spiritual platform. Of course, going with the procedures that Prabhupada has started, 4 principles and the 16 rounds. All that activity of churning and chanting and those principles will start purifying, our minds and our hearts. It takes time. Be patient with yourself. Sometimes I'm a little hard on myself, but then I can use that as an excuse. Well, it was too much for me, so I can get away with this. It's a delicate balance in certain ways. But the more you surrender, it's not so difficult. Jai Shri Radha Nila Maharava Ki Jai, Shri Radha Giridhara Ki Jai, Girubharan Ki Jai, Nitai Chaitanya Chandra Ki, Nitai Gaur Chandra Ki Jai. So, some of the other aspects when I was in the Dhams, I'm just talking about some of the beggars and the people there. There's also the different animals and the different, the different aspects of their own personalities. Cows are individuals, the monkeys, the dogs, the hogs, they're all right there on the streets, in Vrindavan especially. And Mayapur, like I say, it's more buffered in Mayapur. I guess I have attraction for that because maybe I'm not so ready for the intensity of Vrindavan. But when I do go to Vrindavan and Govardhan Hill, the lessons are very strong, and it tends to stick in my mind much better when I get back into America. When you're in Vrindavan, you see these different animals and the different, gross stuff that goes on with them, and then you see humans trying to be very, very human, not so much animalistic. They still forget that those conditions exist in these human bodies. We are human beings. We have to remember we're human, but we can't be a Vaishnava if we're not human. So a Vaishnava and a human being are, as in simultaneously one and different. Achinta beta beta tattva. We're human, but we're also Vaishnava, or aspiring Vaishnavas. We keep that in mind. We'll always be doing proper service as a human being by trying to become a Vaishnava. It's a thing that is worth pursuing. The essence of Vaishnava is to serve, and the serve is to serve the other Vaishnavas and the sages and as mentioned in this chapter. That's the audience of a great yoga masters. Even demigods only rarely obtain this. So we're very fortunate that we're all here, that we can absorb some of this and try to appreciate one another on that level. And those that even aren't there, you want to appreciate them as human beings. And if as mentioned, the beggars or the monkeys and things like this we see out in Vrindavan. Same thing in America, except it's different. It's not quite as stark. You don't see the suffering on the same level because Western culture is trying to make, we can adjust, we're in control. And that's caused some problems too, but we can see beyond that. Because that's why we're getting trained up to see what's really going on around us. As was mentioned in the verse, earlier text they're talking about Samanta Panchaka, which was in Kurukshetra. It's a sacred ground of the Kurus, where the battlefield, of course, of Kurukshetra took place there, and that was later on where the Bhagavad Gita was spoken. But I was reading some of the history of it, and the Samanta Panchaka is referring to the 5 lakes or 5 kuns or ponds that were created there by Lord Parasurama. He was mentioned earlier in, I think it was text 2? They're listing all the people arriving. And Lord Parasurama was there at that time for this arrangement. And of course, it wasn't his first time there. He was there earlier, devastating the Satriyas, the warriors that were abusing their power with the Brahmins. He had quite a few disciples. But there's a lot of potency at Kurukshetra that was required at that time. It was kind of a melting pot, as they call it, or you have the activities of the Vrindavan pastimes, you have the activities of the pastimes of Dwarkadish, And then you have like Parasurama is from different yuga altogether, and he was there at that time. So bringing about all that association at one location indeed is quite an amazing feat. And it's amazing how everything that Krishna does, everything interacts at certain connections. So everybody always gets the benefit of what Lord Krishna has to offer. I hope I can pursue and get better levels of understanding and where I can share those a bit better. I appreciate your patience on this. So, and the Bhagavad Gita was the verse that Jayananda Prabhu that he quoted a few times. Jayananda, of course, you may be familiar. He was one of the earlier devotees. He's one of the pioneers of Prabhupada's movement. In San Francisco in '66, I believe it was, when he met Prabhupada. Prabhupada saved his life. He was about ready. He was going to go for suicide. He was just so frustrated with material energy. Very intelligent, educated. He was a little bit older than most devotees that came to Prabhupada. But the one he quoted, the verse was out of the Bhagavad Gita, was text 922. Anyas chintayanto mam ye janaha parushpashate te sham nitya biluktanam yoge shemam bahami aham. But those who worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. And Jayananda was saying, I hope I'm not being too burdensome to the Lord, because he doesn't want him to carry all his narthas or his offenses. He was very concerned. Jayananda was kind of amazing that way. He's very concerned about, how is he serving the Lord? How is he serving the devotees? It's the selfless practice of caring for others and then caring what we can do for Krishna is really perfection of our devotional service. Is that, we're not so self-indulgent that, what's in it for me? And in our society, it's almost invoked from birth, to enjoy our bodies. So it gets kind of difficult for our Western mind to let it go at certain points. But, and there's also the extreme where you're being selfless, but you're doing it with there's a little attachment there, and that's more tricky. That's a little more, self-deception is a real tricky thing. But we can conquer this, just being sincere in our practice. And by association, there's some people who might inform us things we're not so happy with, but we have to listen to criticism too. That's how we can build our own, clarity of who we are by, a certain thing. Maharaj Hanumat Prakswami, he was talking about, one person comes up to you and says, you're an ass, you're just a jackass, you don't know what you're doing. It's like, oh, well, that's his opinion now. So, you don't let it bother you so much and, consider, okay, what he said, and kind of reflect on that. But, you think, well, I'm okay. And then another person comes up and says, you're just offensive, you're just an ass. And go, that's two people. And then 3 and 4 people say that, you think, wait a minute, you better spit that hay out of your mouth and get straightened up. Well, you're definitely acting like an ass, and you better find out, well, let's correct that. I'm trying to become a human being here. So, you want to appreciate criticism on its level. So, I'm open for any criticism at the moment, or any comments too. I appreciate, actually, I tend to take criticism to heart, maybe sometimes too much, but it's, I think basically because there's some self-criticalness of myself. But perfection in the material world, you can only get to a certain level. Spiritually, it's unachievable, but it's enjoyable because you're getting, you understand that your relationship is getting stronger because you're getting closer to your relationship with the devotees and with Krishna. You can see that people are, you're bringing some happiness to people. Our nature is to be happy, and if people aren't happy, and we're not happy, then we're not quite dialed in. We should be happy in what we're doing. So, it's by nature. The soul is joyful. So, try to keep the they say the wow factor. You want to take the wow factor should be, and then the person's joy. Like they're really happy, and it's a happiness. It's not something temporary. It's like they gain understanding in their mind that, oh yeah, it's okay that this is happening. I'm still going to be okay, and God's looking out for me. We keep remembering that, and keep remembering Krishna, and trying to serve on that platform. It'll always be joyful. It's ecstatic. It's the fine art of relationships is really we have in the Sanskrit. There's 5 primary relationships. You have the vatsal, familial. You have the parental, as I was saying. The other one's friendship. You have the neutral relationship, just as Krishna's flute is actually, spiritually, has an individual that's playing that part. It's a little overwhelming to understand when you're in a material body, like, well, this material, it's just inert matter. How can there be a person in there? Well, at certain levels, God's in there. He's in every molecule. But it's a different. The material affliction is and a gross matter is the remnants of something much greater, and that's a spiritual potency. The spiritual potency is what we're striving for. So we're in our spiritual selves covered by this material vehicle, so it adds confusion. But because of our position now, in the human form, we do have a chance to get clarity on that. So keep up the good work. As those of you who are here attending, and those of you that are listening online, you too can become a perfected being just by serving the devotees right here at Hare Krishna Dham. So encourage your association. I myself take advantage of that I have projects I'm trying to get done with different temples and devotees, and so sometimes I'm taking advantage of the online classes, and I could get down here more often, as Krishna Kripa, as it tends to let us know, and a few people here and there's so many online. How about coming down here personally, and that personal thing does make a little bit more difference. I just learned recently that the classes are kind of a way to help digest what we're reading and studying. It enhances what we're practicing. So even though we are quite busy with our lives and still trying to dovetail it with Krishna consciousness, we got to make some sacrifices, So, any other comments, criticisms? And please tolerate my hearing is not real good, so I'll take.
Okay, so I'll speak so you can hear. Okay, so I hope I'm not out of line, but I know that you went over there for a personal reason too. Can you say something about that?
On the personal.
Taking your father's ashes and putting them in the Ganges.
Yeah.
Can you say
my
just a little
own
bit
experience.
about
Yeah,
that
was.
there?
Well, it's a secret. Don't tell anybody. My family didn't want me to do that. My father initially wanted to be placed in this Monterey Bay in Santa Cruz Harbor, and I did. I put a portion of his ashes there, but as I informed my family, I'll take good care of him, and that's why we got him to the Ganges. But yeah, getting my father's ashes to India was a divine arrangement. As I mentioned, I didn't have the facility to do it. I didn't have the income, or did I thought I had the time. But the arrangements were made. It was very nice. And then, as I was getting ready to go, I asked different devotees if there's anything that I could do for them. And then a devotee here also had some ashes from his father. So I ended up taking 2 people to the Ganges on my journey. And I'm not really a qualified Brahmin. I have, certain tendencies. I have certain understandings. But purity is very important as a Brahmin. But I was trying to get somebody to perform a yagna for my father, and I was having difficulty. And another devotee said, "Well, there's no reason you can't do it yourself. Just, make some arrangements and get the paraphernalia you need and just go to the Ganges and do it yourself. And so I ended up doing it myself and setting things up as best I could. But in the journey, it was kind of tricky getting around areas. Certain areas are very, a lot of people are hanging out at the beach at the Ganga. I needed more private location. And in doing so, I was wandering along the shoreline of the Ganges and ended up in a small niche and a little opening in the bushes along the river. I go, well, what's here? And I went down there, there's a path, and there's a tree, and there's little benches around there. Hardly anybody was there. Like one or two people were just kind of sitting on the bench, and they weren't even looking at the river. But I set up a little altar there, and I had a garland from Nishringadev, and some the pots I had were actually from the garden where they grow tulsi. So these little tulsi pots, I put the ashes in there, and wrote the names on there, and did a little invocation and offering of incense with the flowers. And I'm working there. More people come, but they're all locals, they're young kids, and they're all sitting around the tree and they're talking and stuff. And I'm going about my business, going down to the beach, and I'm setting up the pots of ashes to get ready to distribute them into the Ganga. And they're looking at me, and then I'm realizing they're all setting up chillums and pipes, and all smoking ganja right at the river as I'm setting up for my father's little memorial there. But it was good. I could relate. My father, he knows about that type of stuff too. He was kind of a closet Shivite, my father. So he had, I gave him lots of prasad, and I gave him, some literature, and even semi-vegetarian. So he had some prerequisites going for him. But the expectations, and the potency of the Ganges it's when you come at it with the Western mind and you just look at, it's a river and there's some boats, there's just people around. You don't get the full impact of what that river is tied to. But after doing that, I felt a great relief, because your parents, people you have attachment to, especially when you get into devotional service, you want to do what's best for them, and you try to encourage them to get higher levels of, consciousness. And as their child, they're not going to quite perceive it the same way, and it depends on their upbringing too. Most Westerners don't, if they're, meat and potatoes, Americana apple pie, it's pretty much, what's here is all there is. It doesn't really, you don't bring perceptions of a higher consciousness that, is eternal. It's just, aspects of Christianity touches down on it. Religion in America has, attempts at it, but nothing like Vedas offer from Srila Prabhupada's, planting the seed of bhakti in America. It has done some great things for people. So I guess the point being is that when you get rid of all the stuff that's been, we've been brainwashed in the Western aspect, we get scrubbed out in the Eastern aspect, you get that detergent, you get cleaned out, you start appreciating how powerful that these things are around us, and how powerful our minds are, that we can't physically go there, we can still, in our minds, perceive that these places do exist. We can bring them into our lives at a point internally that we're protected, so we don't get lost by the illusion of the Western glamour, and things like that. So I hope I've conveyed some things that might be helpful for your time here and my own experiences. I know I need to address more reading and getting more into Prabhupada's books. And for me, it's getting to that point. I'm getting later in the years. First 50 years, you pretty much, you run your course. Second 50 years, you start preparing to go. We're on our way out. So it's better to get more focused into these literature and things like that. And, we have our own dharma, but and they also have, you have the Jai Shri Nitai Caitanya ki Nitai Gaurachandra ki Jai Radha Giridhara ki Jai Gira Govardhan ki Jai Radha Nilamara ki Jai Gaur. So as we know that the Varnashram Dharma, we have the aspects of personal proclivities, as is Sudras, workers, Vaishyas, businessmen, Satriyas, warriors, policemen, as you have it, Brahmins, teachers, instructors. So those things we have individually. Then collectively we have the aspect of like the brahmacharya, or younger life, education. Then we have family life, if we get into that, and then we start retiring from that and getting ready to go, and that's like sannyasis and the other aspects for renounced life. So you can follow those, and it will help you out. I mean, it's not like the minute you turn 50 years old, you got to jump into this or whatever. It's like, ease into it where you can, and time, place, and circumstance. But follow your heart, follow the guidelines, and serve the Lord, and get association. You got it made. It's not such a bad life. Just remember you're in Kali Yuga, though, so be careful. All glories of Prabhupada, all glories of noble devotees. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bo. And thank you so much for your time and association.
All glories, all glories, all glories to His grace. Caitanya Caritamrta Prabhu, the personification of creativity. Hari Hari Bo.